Hey there, and welcome to the Event Crushed podcast. Each week, we'll be chatting about all things wedding industry, entrepreneurship, and how to crush it in life and business. I'm so glad you're here. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Event Crushed podcast. I hope you're having a fabulous Friday or whatever day it happens to be when you are listening to this. Today, I have another wonderful interview. I am bringing you a conversation with Mimi of Wilder Social. And Mimi is a social media manager for Wedding Pros, and she is also a content creator. So we got into some really interesting conversations surrounding social media and Instagram and content creation. I really think you are going to enjoy this conversation. Mimi talks a lot about authenticity in our social media and how important that is paired with providing value and educational content to our audiences. So I think there's a lot of great stuff in here. And if you have struggled with Instagram or social media at all over the last however long, I think this episode will help you to have a clear path moving forward. So with that, let's welcome Mimi to the show. Hey, Mimi, thanks so much for just setting aside some time to chat with me on the podcast today.
Of course, I am so happy to be here.
Yay. Well, I'm happy to have you here. So before we jump in to our topic today, which is kind of all things Instagram and social media and all of that good stuff, I would love it if you could just share a bit about yourself and your background and how you work with wedding pros these days.
Absolutely. So I'm based here in Denver, Colorado, but I am from New Orleans. I have been doing social media management and content creation now for about 10 years, which is kind of crazy. I feel like social media hasn't even been here that long, but it has. I got started when I was in college, actually. I had an uncle and a boss at the time who were both very frustrated with the amount of time I spent on my phone. And that boss actually took that frustration and was like, okay, well, if you are going to be on your phone, then you might as well run our social media. And so I did that, and we ended up growing that company to be a multi-million-dollar startup company. And I just kind of run with social media ever since then. I've dabbled into e-commerce and a couple of other things, and this just is always home for me, honestly. So I currently work with wedding professionals by doing social media management for them, as well as like consulting services, strategy calls, and at the end of the day, content creation as well.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. What made you want to work with wedding pros specifically? Like, did that just kind of come naturally, or did you just decide like, I want to work with wedding pros? Like, how did that come about?
So that came about because I actually got super burnt out on social media back in like 2021, I want to say. And I took about an 8-month break and very gently decided to come back into it, and was working with a mentor at the time who needed a virtual assistant. And so I was like, sure, like, why not? And it turned out all of her clients are wedding professionals. And I literally found myself like sobbing going through these photo galleries and things like that, just like pure joy. I love seeing love, honestly. And so I kind of sat on it for a while because I didn't want to be, in my head, I was like, I don't want to seem like I'm copying her entire career, like blueprint, basically. So I asked her if she would be okay with me pivoting myself towards the wedding industry, because at that time I was actually in cannabis and was not having a good time there. And so she said yes, and the rest is history. Honestly, I took that yes and went full speed ahead with zero regrets.
Oh, that's so cool. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I think the wedding industry is pretty fantastic. And I mean, especially if you're working, it's such a like visual industry. So, like you said, you're seeing all these gorgeous wedding galleries and just all the emotions associated with a wedding day and all the good feelings that come with that. So yeah, if I was in like, social media management or a VA or anything, like, yeah, I would definitely pick working with wedding pros.
Easy decision.
Mm-hmm. I love it. So do you primarily work with Instagram, or do you do like all social media? Like, do you do TikTok? Do you do Facebook? Like, what kind of mediums?
I primarily work with Instagram. It's definitely my bread and butter, but that does translate pretty easily over the other meta platforms. So I do include Facebook and Facebook and Threads if a client is interested in that, and I do TikTok as well because I think TikTok, for me personally, it's a pretty simple algorithm. I think a lot of people might disagree with that, but I find TikTok to be kind of like an easy add-on.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. So today, like I said before, we're kind of diving into all things social media for wedding pros, and you help people with social media for a living. So I figured, this would be a good chance to kind of get the good, the bad, and the ugly of social media and kind of just like put it all out there. I know definitely on Threads and in like different areas and personal conversations with vendors, people for a while now have just been like really complaining about the Instagram algorithm. And I don't know, just kind of these like negative feeling towards it, feeling like it doesn't matter what I do, nobody's seeing my stuff. And unfortunately, like a lot of people have felt that way. And I'm just curious, have you seen that like in your, you work in this industry. So have you seen that? And then what are the main struggles that you see wedding pros dealing with as it pertains to social media?
Absolutely. We've definitely seen that, especially over these past few months, like you mentioned. There's been a massive algorithm change and just a change overall in analytics that Meta values, especially on Instagram. As we know, we've seen impressions move to views, which I personally think is a little bit unfortunate. I think that kind of encourages the view bait or rage bait kind of content that's just really just like not good content. It's just out there to get people on it. So I think it'll be interesting to see that develop over the next couple months. Right now, I don't hate it right now as much as I did probably about a month and a half ago. A month and a half ago, I was really upset about this. But now I kind of feel like they tweak things on the back end a bit. So we're not really seeing these massive viral views on Instagram anymore like we used to. We're seeing definitely like a dip in view numbers and things like that. And don't get me wrong, like that's such a bummer, especially for people who are really used to high engagement numbers. But I will say that I've noticed that what it counts as views is a much higher standard than what it used to be. I used to get into my clients' accounts and see that we had like 20K views on a reel, and probably about 13K of them would be like replays or something like that. Like things that don't actually make sense, nor do they hold value. So while it is a bummer to not have that really high, beautiful, flashy number anymore, I think we're getting a higher quality in the views that are coming on our content. Even if it is lesser, they're better eyes. And I think that is something to hold on to. Just because I don't think it doesn't make any difference to our businesses when it's just a bunch of replays or a bunch of bot accounts or like whatever that is. Those at the end of the day, like those just turn into vanity numbers, which have no use for us. I will say the one thing I'm really seeing people struggle with right now, especially in the wedding industry, is I think balancing when and how often to post trendy content and when to post content that actually provides value to your audience. I'm seeing a lot of accounts right now really leverage trends, and that can be a good strategy for a short-term amount of time, but at some point in that, like you kind of lose your identity and like your brand voice because you're piggybacking off of these other people's trends and trying to make sense to the trend instead of making sense to your audience. So I think really being kind of like authentic is really big right now. People want to see your personality. They want to hear your tone of voice. They want to see like your personal touch and how you work. Just because social media is so saturated that being a human and interacting like a human and having content that also makes you seem human is going to perform better right now than content that just kind of blends in with all the other content passing by.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I appreciate you just kind of like breaking that down a little bit, because I think it can just feel so overwhelming when we just feel like, oh my gosh, why am I even putting all this effort into posting, multiple times a week and I'm doing these reels and I'm doing this and that. And like, does any of this really matter? But I love how you explained like that we're getting higher quality views now. Like maybe before you were getting a lot more views, but like, did that actually lead to sales? Did that actually lead to bookings? Like, does it really matter if something goes viral? Like I've never really had any desire for anything to go viral because I'm like, it's going to be people all over the world seeing it. Like I want people here in Oregon seeing my content, but this is helpful. I don't know. Sometimes I think back to like, to me, the golden days of Instagram were when Reels was like new. Not like brand new, but it was new enough that it was still super exciting. And like I got into it kind of early, like not right away, but like pretty early on. And I just started doing all these Reels. And it was just so fun because I had such high engagement. Like I wasn't getting, thousands and thousands of views, but I was getting like 5,000, 10,000, but I was getting tons of like comments and just good engagement on it. And that was so much fun. And now I'm like, it takes a lot for me to even just make a reel these days, but that's okay. I have like definitely a love-hate relationship with Instagram, but I do love it. And I am working on getting more consistent these days.
Don't worry. I also have a love-hate relationship with Instagram. As someone that's worked on this app for 10 years now, I sit here sometimes and I'm like, why? Like we had such a good thing going here. What are we doing?
Seriously. Oh, yep. So, okay, so you talked about some challenges that wedding pros might be facing, and you gave some good insight. Do you have any additional thoughts about how we can overcome some of these challenges that we might be facing?
I would say the two things that are popping in my head right now are be authentic and be genuine. And what I mean by that is, again, just kind of like reiterating, be authentic in your content, show your personality, show what it's like working with you. Like, remind people and show them that like you are a human. Simple as that. Be genuine. That goes into more of like the engagement side. We all know that like community engagement is huge with success on Instagram. So instead of leaving just like random comments and just like going down your page and like liking people's posts, make it personal. When I come across a photographer's photo slides that I love or something like that, I find something very specific that I'm drawn to and I comment about that. And I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten a like or a follow or even an inquiry from that just because it was a genuine comment and not just, oh, love this. Oh, stunning. Like, thank you. But also like, there's a million other people commenting the same thing. You know what I mean? So I would just really put all of your energy into being a genuine, authentic presence on social media right now, because I think people are really burnt out from this super polished, super perfect, beautiful lifestyle that we just constantly are fed on social media, when in the world that we're in, that's just not really reality for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's great advice to make it personal and to be genuine in your comments. I cannot tell you, and I'm guilty of this too. So I'm guilty of this, but comments on, a post of a beautiful wedding photo or a couple, and it's like, oh my gosh, gorgeous, or, oh, love this. Like
We're all guilty, but
yeah, I think it's better than nothing. But also if you make it more personal and specific to that vendor, like they're going to be more prone to reply to that comment too, and like kind of keep the conversation going. Like if you're just like, oh, love it, what are they going to say? Thank you. Like there's not a great response opportunity there. So I definitely agree with you. The more like personalized we can make it, that's cool that you've got like inquiries and stuff from just a comment that you left.
oh, crazy. One of my very favorite clients that I have right now is a videographer. And I literally just came across one of his videos on my feed. I thought it was absolutely gorgeous. I still do. Their work is incredible. And I comment letting them know that I thought that their work was incredible and gave them a follow, because even if I will also say too, I don't go into engaging with people being like, okay, let me get 5 inquiries today. You know what I mean? Like, I look for content that I genuinely like, because not only does it inspire me to work with my clients, but I want to work with those people who have beautiful content too already. It makes my job a little bit easier at the end of the day when I don't have to make your content beautiful. You know what I mean? And I commented, I followed him, and literally the very next day he followed me back, put in an inquiry form. We hopped on a call and he was like, I cannot tell you how amazing it was that you even commented on my post because I was just thinking that night that I wanted to hire someone for social media. And there you were. And it just goes to show, a little patience and a lot of consistency can go a very long way. And that's another thing too that I would say to give some serious advice to people who are really struggling with the low engagement and feeling like they're not doing well. I myself have 384 followers, I want to say, something like that. I am fully booked right now. I literally cannot take on any more clients. I've closed down my books for weddings this winter. Have another client who has about 3,000 followers, and she's almost fully booked for weddings in 2025. So don't let the numbers discourage you because they don't mean everything. Is it nice to have 20K followers? Absolutely. Is it 100% necessary to be successful in your industry and in your business? Literally not at all. Not in the slightest.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it goes both ways. There are definitely people who have a huge following on social media, but they don't have the bookings to like go along with it. So it's interesting. Yeah, it definitely does not need to align. You can be super successful and have like a low, whatever we're calling low, follower count. There are so many more important metrics to track versus follower count or, even how many likes we're getting or, those vanity metrics. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. It's just a good reminder for all of us. Because I think the thing about Instagram is like you open the app and you're immediately reminded of like, here's how many people are following me and here's how many likes I got on my last post. Like it's just in your face all the time. And I think that's what makes it stressful because we're just constantly being reminded of that. And even if, like me, I don't have notifications on, so I don't get any notifications telling me I got a new follower, until I go into the app and then I like look at it because it's just there and I'm like, okay, cool. But it's just constantly reminding us of like our successes and our failures and all of that. Okay, so with your clients in the wedding industry, like, have you seen anything lately that has been working really well for wedding pros? Or do you have any like recommendations, kind of like specific things that you would suggest? I know before you mentioned the trendy stuff versus like educational content or providing value. So maybe you could touch on that a little bit more. Just anything else you would share about what we could be prioritizing for our social media.
Absolutely. The posts that I'm seeing be the most successful right now are storytelling content and educational content. I think there's a lot of people who are planning weddings right now. I think we did see a dip in the overall amount of weddings that actually occurred in 2024. I think a lot of people pushed it back and kind of waited to save up some money to do their dream party and things like that. So I think educational is killing it right now. Like my clients' educational posts are thriving. People want to know things, and especially with the season. Like I wouldn't necessarily post so much educational content probably between like March and July-ish when you're in like peak weddings are going on season. But like right now when people are getting proposed, when people are slowing down and like able to not attend a wedding, but actually plan their wedding, that kind of content's really valuable to them. And then storytelling wise, I think not only is this just a kind of content that can really benefit your client because they can see your work in a much bigger way, in a way that also like, again, it tells a story, you know what I mean? And that's what people want to see through their wedding product, especially for photographers and videographers. At the end of the day, like your deliverable is the story of their wedding day. So that is huge. And I think for people who are like planners and florists and things like that, like just educating people on like their expectations too. I think that's going to go a long way in the overall client experience. And so I would really leverage that at this time.
For sure. I have found that when I do posts that have like wedding planning advice, or I have this series that I've been doing for like years now, not consistently the entire time, but like it's been ongoing, called Pro Planning Tips. And those posts always get the most, shares and saves because people come back to them. And to me, that's more valuable than like how many likes that it got. Like if I know like, oh, people are saving this, they like this content, or they're sharing it with other, engaged friends, or they're sharing it on their stories. Like that's what I want. I want the stuff that's getting shared because that's putting more eyes on my business, which could potentially lead to more inquiries and all the things that we want. So I totally agree with you. I think educational content is the way to go. I also think it's like really underutilized. There's so much opportunity there, but I see a lot of wedding pros just sharing, their gorgeous photos and just like a very generic caption. Again, I am guilty of this as well at times, but for me, like the posts that I do that just have like a beautiful photo and then I'm like, oh, look at this couple, whatever, like they don't do really well because I'm not getting anyone thinking, I'm not like asking for engagement. They're just looking at it and going, oh, cool, like keep scrolling, So we need to be working a little harder I think, on our captions and like what can we do to actually make people more interested and invested in this beyond just like, oh, pretty picture.
Absolutely, because you want them to stay there. You want them to find interest in that content for them to continue engaging with it, because the watch time goes into how successful that reel will be and how Meta will push it out. But I will say, I feel like a lot of people maybe don't utilize educational content because it's kind of hard, I will say, to make sure you're not educating other wedding professionals and you're educating a couple, because that is the most important. I cannot tell you the amount of there's a one photographer and I think her work is amazing, but I always want to reach out to her because her content makes no sense for couples. It's very much educational towards other photographers and other wedding professionals than it is actually to a couple. And at the end of the day, like, unless you are an educator for wedding professionals are not buying your service. They will not. I mean, they might if they get married, I will give credit to that opportunity being there. But for the most part, like, all they're going to do from that is either A, apply that to their own business, or B, they might take that reel and remake it. And then they continue in the cycle where we're just marketing to other wedding pros who are not going to ever buy your product. And I also think that's how a lot of wedding pros end up with really high engagement numbers and follower counts, because they've attracted more industry professionals than they have couples, because couples only get married one time for the most part. So that life cycle that you have as a follower is a little bit shorter than most industries. And so I think when you're getting to those huge numbers, it's people who are inspired by your work as a business owner.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because when we have other wedding pros that are following us, it's like they're probably going to, unless, we piss them off or something, like they're going to keep following us because they're in the same industry that we are. But that's a good point. Like if we have, somebody who's engaged following us and then like they get married or whatever, and then maybe they don't, not like our own client, but like somebody who's following for inspiration or something, then they might like unfollow you, eventually later. But like wedding pros are, I feel like, more loyal. Okay, so my next question is related to your services as a social media manager. So how does somebody know, like, if somebody out there is just struggling with their social media and they're like, I can't keep up with it. I can't, I can't beat this algorithm. I just don't know what to do. Like, how would they know if they're ready to bring on and hire a social media manager? Do you have any like telltale signs that somebody might be ready for that step?
I think the first thing would be making sure that like 112% you have room in your budget to invest in the service. If you try to go with a social media manager who charges you $500 a month for 5 posts, you and clients and other professionals can very much tell that your social media manager is charging you $500 a month for 5 posts a week. That's just really not a figure you're going to see. So I think if you get to the point where you have that extra, I would say minimum $1,000 a month for a social media manager, that's step one. The only time I would ever not consider that step one would be if literally you are drowning in inquiries already and you just need something taken off of your plate in order to free up your ability to book more weddings. Because at the end of the day, like at that time, you're already in a position to heighten your income levels. And so hiring a social media at that time would probably benefit you most by causing you to kind of really stretch that budget and make it tight than it would if you just don't want to do social media, but have like a really small budget for it. So at the end of the day, if you're not getting a quality social media manager, and really, unfortunately, there are a lot out there who are not good at their jobs. There's not really a kinder way for me to say that, but there's a lot of social media managers who just got into the industry because it seems like an easy job they can do from home. And it is a job I can do from home, but it is not easy. And I think you really get what you pay for in this industry. And I know that's not always true. People will always overcharge and things like that. But someone who's charging anywhere under $1,000 a month is probably not going to give you a very good ROI there. Other than that, if you have the budget and you literally don't want to do it and you're aware that someone might be able to do it a little bit better and a little bit differently from you, I think that's always great. When you know what you're capable of, that's amazing. But if you're not ready to let it go, if you're not ready to let someone else have a little bit more creative freedom with your work, then it might be better to start off with a virtual assistant or someone who maybe just edits your content for you, things like that. That's probably a good place to start if you're not really ready to make the dive into full-scale management.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate that you gave like a tangible number, because I feel like a lot of times it's like, okay, but give me an actual number. So I think that's really helpful for my listeners who maybe haven't they've thought about it, but they haven't fully looked into hiring somebody. And so just having that number in mind to know like, okay, that's where, once I have that much extra a month to invest in this, that's when I'll be ready. So I really appreciate that. And I think that is super helpful.
Of course.
Do you mind just sharing a little bit more about, let's say somebody were to invest that $1,000 a month in your services. Do you mind just sharing like what's included in that? Like what would they be getting for that?
Absolutely. So right now for $1,000 a month, I do one platform and that's 3 posts a week. We'll kind of discuss whether we want those all 3 to be reels or if we want them to be a mix of static post and reels. I find that most people prefer that I just do the reels because they can be really tricky for people who don't love making social media content. And then I write the captions for all of those posts. I manually post them myself. I do not schedule posts. I don't believe in it unless it is physically impossible for me to post your post. That is the only reason I will ever schedule it. And then, let me see, I do a monthly analytics report for you. We also have an optional monthly call as well. So if analytics just like aren't your jam or we want to update your strategy, whatever that may be, we can hop on a call every single month. And we also do a custom strategy development. So I will spend typically around 2 weeks, sometimes up to 3, developing a custom strategy for all of my clients. Then that way we can work on that together, make sure everything sounds good before we actually start the content creation part.
Oh, that's so cool. I've never hired a social media manager, but hearing you list it all out like that, that sounds amazing.
Sometimes I'm like, do I need to hire a social media manager for my page? Because I will sit here and do everyone else's content and have the best time. And then it comes to mine and I'm like, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. I know my VA has said like really similar things, like working on, other people's content and other people's social media. And then, she kind of neglects her own. And it's like, it's understandable. Like you're, got a lot going on. I'm curious because you mentioned, you don't believe in scheduling posts. I've heard negative things about it too, but I would love it. Can you share a bit more about that? Like, why do you avoid scheduling posts?
I would say the main number one reason is because I'm a recovering perfectionist. I'm still in recovery for that. It's a daily task, but I find it glitches so much. It absolutely drives me crazy and it becomes an actual source of anxiety for me to sit here and schedule a post and be like, oh, is all of my text going to be in the reel? Is my caption still going to be there? Is my photo going to be there? Cover photo will 100% not be there. Is it even going to post? Because it glitches so much that I'm like, this is just not worth it at this point to have this much anxiety, stress, and like worry over it. Second reason, I have found that pretty much any post I've ever scheduled has terrible engagement. Doesn't get any views, doesn't get any likes, comments, shares, saves. No one sees it. So I just figure, why not do it myself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so interesting. I wonder why even have that as a possible feature if they're not going to show it to anybody? Like that doesn't make sense.
I know. It's literally that. And that's one of my huge frustrations with Meta right now, is Instagram particularly, is that we have 1.5 million updates rolling out right now, and half of them don't even work. I don't know about you. I've had the carousel glitch for 3 months now, where I can't see past photo 3 unless I slide over slightly to the left or do something like that. And I'm like, before we add 20 photos to a carousel, can we fix the carousel? I would like to actually see the photos.
Yeah. So when I haven't heard of that. So when you're looking at other people's carousels, you can't scroll past the third photo?
Oh no. Let me see if I can pull one, show you, because
That's
it drives
so
me
annoying.
bonkers. It drives me absolutely crazy.
I can understand. Yeah.
Oh, this one worked.
Of course.
Amazing.
It's fixed now.
Oh my God, are we all working? Okay, well, I take back what I said. Thank you, Meta.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Okay. Well, I'm glad it's working now. That's great.
I'm actually really thrilled about that, because that literally the other day I was like, why is this still happening?
Yeah, that would drive me crazy. The last thing I want to talk about is another service that you offer, and I just want to take us on a little detour over to content creation, because this has become so popular in our industry, and I would just love to get your take on it. I want to hear what kind of services you offer as a content creator, but also I was just listening to a presentation in a group that I'm in for wedding planners, and they were talking about content creation, and obviously there's content creators now who are that's their sole thing is content creation. But then they were also talking about other vendors adding that service on, like a social media manager who also does content creation, or a wedding planner who also does content creation, or a videographer. You know what I mean? It can be kind of this add-on service, but I'm just really curious to hear your thoughts on content creation. It's kind of taken the industry by storm, I feel like, and couples want it, vendors want it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on content creation?
Do the vendors really want it though? No.
No?
Oh God. There's so much to unpack about it. Especially on both sides of the spectrum here. Considering I do wedding content creation as a vendor for a couple, and then I do it as a vendor for a vendor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, where to start? Okay, I'll start first with the other vendors having it as an add-on. I think this is a really slippery slope, very slippery. Because at the end of the day, a photographer isn't a content creator, a wedding planner isn't a content creator, and I will give a little bit more credit to videographers, because I would trust a videographer add-on more than most vendors. But I just think that is a way to end up getting very unpleasant reviews on your business, is by trying to just offer it because you can film on your phone. There is a level of skill that goes into quality content creation, because I see a lot of people who offer it just as a fun add-on, and I would be pretty disappointed if I was a bride who decided to invest in that add-on from a photographer, and their second shooter is just sometimes taking videos throughout the day. I to be a dedicated position in person who knows how to operate a phone properly. And I mean, that sounds so silly to say, because everyone knows how to use a phone. You know what I mean? But I have certain settings on my phone that make my videos look the way that I do. I have certain ways of filming certain shots that go into that having the quality that it does. And even the way that I literally hold my phone. I think so many people underestimate how important it is that you can hold this thing correctly. Because my very first wedding, I worked as a wedding content creator. I did for one of my very good friends. And I was very thankful for that. But after I finished that wedding, this is a rookie mistake, but I heard myself crying in the background. and then literally there were so many times where I could see myself walking. Like I could tell through the camera that I was like taking a step right then and there, because it's like a tiny little shake that happens. And it's just teeny tiny things that I feel like if you're not doing this often enough, you're not going to catch on to or be mindful about when you deliver that product. And at the end of the day, like it affects how well that delivered product actually performs with your couple or client. Wedding content creation as a whole, I think, is really interesting. I think it's really cool because, there is this demand to have social media content at your wedding. And at the end of the day, like that is the bride and groom's decision or the couple's decision to do that. And if that matters to them, then that's literally all that matters. And I think there are a lot of vendors who need to hear that and really take that in and believe it, because the amount of people here who I'm seeing right now put clauses in their contracts that say they have the exclusive right to do videos or photos, and therefore not allowing their couple to hire someone who can do content because of that. I think it's a really big hater mindset. And at the end of the day, there's room for everyone to eat. But most importantly, at the end of the day, we are all hired. We are all hired to perform a service. And when you start letting ego get in the way of that and letting that really affect you, not only does that come off as some certain level of insecurity, but at the end of the day, that makes you unpleasant to work with. And no one wants to have a wedding day with someone who is unpleasant to work with. It's not about you at the end of the day. It's about the couple and making sure that their day is perfect and everything they wanted. That is all that matters. It's literally all that matters. And I think there's a lot of people who really need to hear that, because there's a very popular podcast that has a Facebook group, and there was a discussion in it recently about content creators. And there was a planner in there who responded to my comment, which was basically just like, you really shouldn't be worried about content creators. And she said that I essentially have to prove my worth to be there, as it is a new industry. Oh, you know what this was? This was about vendors not tagging other vendors. And I was like, I have literally never been tagged. Not once. I had to ask a photographer to tag me, and then she proceeded to untag me a week later from her photos. That's a whole different story. She also, I beefed at that wedding because she made some really crazy transphobic comments. And I was like, let's not do that here. And also, you're wrong. Right. I just think personally, like, if I was to see a vendor constantly talking about content creators in a negative light, saying that they're taking away from your job or whatever, I would wonder what is making you feel so insecure about what you do. Because I see wedding professionals work all the time. I see videography and photography constantly in the work that I do as a social media manager. And I literally could not imagine one of my clients coming to me and being like, my entire day was ruined at this wedding because there was a girl with a cell phone there. Like, y'all's work is so gorgeous. Believe in that. Believe in that and in your skill set, and like know that about yourself. Like, me with an iPhone should literally never bother you, because also like my whole point is to stay out of your way. Like, I want to get behind the scenes action. I want to get unposed things, and I don't want to get in front of the camera. I mean, that's not my place, That's what a videographer is there for. If there's not a videographer there, then yes, like I am attached to that photographer. Like, we are moving around the wedding like this. But that's just because at the end of the day, like, we all have a job to do, and I'm there to serve the couple, and I want to make sure they have best videos and the best day, and they look back on the things they get and it makes them smile and cry happy tears, just the same way I do when I edit their content.
Well, I would just like to say amen to pretty much everything you said. The whole point that it's not about you, and that, if the couple is hiring you, yeah, I agree with you. I don't understand what it is taking away from the photographer or the videographer, assuming that they're not, which I don't really foresee this, that like they're not going to hire a content creator instead of a photographer, or would they?
I have been I have been reading about some people that have done that recently.
Okay.
I personally have it in my contract and on my website and in my inquiry form and literally anywhere I can put it. I will not work a wedding without a professional photographer.
Okay.
I
Nice.
think if I'm going to be honest, if a content creator is doing that, they are stepping out of bounds, and they are setting themselves up for failure because you can't compete with a photographer's work with an iPhone. Many
Right.
people say you can't. And like, don't get me wrong, I get beautiful photos on this thing. It does not compare. It does not.
Right. 100%. So, yeah, I just don't think that photographers should feel threatened by, or videographers should feel threatened by content creators, because you're all working together. One is not, hopefully not replacing the other, because they're very different services, like you said.
Nope.
And yeah, just the whole ego thing. So I think I will say, like, it is still new. And I think people are just like figuring it out. And so it might just take a while, because eventually, assuming that it does just become like a normal part of a wedding day, this conversation will be old news and it'll just be like, oh yeah, the content creator. But like right now, it's a whole new vendor category. So I think people are just like, what the heck, figuring it out. And it's a little bit of a process, but I think we'll get there because there's more than enough room for everybody. So when you do content creation, it's primarily for the couple. Like, have you ever had a vendor hire you for a wedding day to capture like their side of things too?
Yes, I've done two now. I did one with a photographer who I love, and that was a lot of fun. I did that for her for free. I approached her about it because I've wanted to grow that side of my business a lot. And I love her work. And so I thought it was a really good opportunity for us to collaborate and like create a relationship. That was so much fun. It was also such a learning experience. It was a lot of fun for me. I love learning things. So like I don't ever take a bad experience as a bad experience. It's just a learning one. And not to say that was a bad experience either. Let me clarify. That was actually so much fun. And she's used a lot of that content in her posts and stuff. And I think we gave it to the couple too for free as well, so they could have everything. And then I've done a florist. That was really fun. I love florists. I love florals. It's like my little side hobby. I love making bouquets for myself and my friends. So I'm like dying to work with more florists right now. If there are any florists listening to this who have considered a social media manager, please, please.
Yes. Oh, for sure. I have wanted to hire a content creator to come on to a couple of my weddings this summer. There's nobody local to my area, which is like so crazy. There's people in like Portland and Bend, so a couple hours away, but I haven't been able to find anybody in Eugene specifically. There's one gal who said she's considering starting it, and I'm like, please do, because yeah, I take videos, I'm not a content creator, but like I'm taking behind the scenes videos all day long when I can, but it's definitely where you can see when I'm taking steps. Like you mentioned, I'm sure there's a whole art form to it that I just have no idea about, because mine is very like clunky, and it's always like scanning this way. Like I that's all I have. Like that's literally all I have.
I really want that to grow in my business and keep catching on because I mean, I worked with her for like 2.5 hours, I want to say. And again, it was free. So like I wasn't going so crazy. But with the florist, for example, I want to say I delivered her like 200 raw videos and then I also include 3 edited reels. So it kind of helps you get started a little bit there and see how I used that footage to make content too. I feel like that would help someone like be encouraged to use the rest of that footage that they got from that content session and continue creating reels with it. And like it just kind of takes it off your back. Like you don't have to buy a tripod to attach to your camera to film BTS. You don't have to ask your second shooter to do it or set up your phone somewhere. It's just done for you. Like you just have a little minion behind you, me with the cell phone, who's just filming you all day long.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Well, we are 46 minutes in. That kind of flew by.
My
So, how
goodness,
can
that's
my
great.
listeners connect with you and learn more about all of your fabulous services?
Absolutely. I am most active on my Instagram, which is wilder_social. Other than that, you can head to my website, which is wilder-social.com. um, and yeah, that's probably the best place to find me right now. Anyone who's listening to this, don't judge my website right now. I'm going through a rebrand. It'll be much cuter in a few months. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I will happily chat with you over DMs, or if you want to shoot me an email or an inquiry form, whatever that takes. Always happy to help. And I also consider myself to be a very thoughtful business owner. I have a low income background, so I am very aware of struggles people face, especially in this current economy. And if $1,000 doesn't work for you, we can always figure something out and make it make sense for the both of us. So,
Oh, that's so cool. Okay, Mimi, well, thank you so much for taking the time. It was really fun chatting with you today.
of course, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Event Crushed podcast. I hope you found value in this episode, and if you did, please consider sharing it with a wedding industry friend. We also hope you'll consider leaving a rating or review for the show to help other listeners find it. This podcast is edited and produced by Ace Sound Design. If you're looking to elevate your audio experience, their info can be found in the show description. As always, thank you for listening, and please connect with us on Instagram if you haven't already. Now get out there and crush it.